This is Twit.
Well, let's take a look and see what happened this past weekend in Northern California. Let's go ahead and roll Pacificon. Pacificon is run by the Mount Diablo Amateur Radio Club. But wait a minute, about 6 other clubs bring in 20 to 30 members to help out as well. And Pacificon is again back at San Ramon at the Marriott. And let me tell you, this Marriott was standing tall, and they took the weight out of everything. That is WAIT. They had nice concessions outside where you could get a burger or a hot dog, not at $105, but a modest $4 to $6, and they were delicious. But the best part is you didn't miss any of the action as Pacificon was rolling. We pulled in Thursday to talk to the Benicia Amateur Radio Club all about emergency comms. And the big question is, what's this thing about the state of California finding that ham radio is no longer a benefit? Well, this comes from a squabble between a ham group and Cal State Fire. And so Cal Fire had a ham radio group, and they had their very, very nice outfitted volunteer operated ham radio command center as one of those that you would see out front at Pacificon. And they said, oh boy, this is just totally blown out of proportion, that it's not near as bad for those that work closely with their served agency. So lesson learned, work closely with your served agency. So when the served agency inventory specialist goes in there and sees a Kenwood rather than a Motorola or one of the other emergency radios, they know what it's for. They know all that hams do. And during the fires last year, up in the Bay Area, the hams, one of their greatest roles was providing cell phone recharging, and also taking the individual firefighters and getting them phone patched to their loved ones, or at least a message to their loved ones, having a great time putting out fires, won't be home for another week, but at least they knew that they were alive and well, because many of the areas had no cellular coverage, had no internet, but they did have ham radio. So volunteers, if you're working with a served agency, make sure that you're working closely with them so that they know that gear at their tower and their blockhouse is indeed ham radio gear supporting them. Well, we started out with a ham radio instructor academy as well as a breakfast. Bob Heil was there. We had a wonderful time, and let me tell you, the Pacificon crowd, and Pacificon, by the way, is just inland from the Bay Area, was there. And Friday afternoon, usually Friday's not a big day for any ham fest. They usually stay open for like 3 hours, and we get a trickle of people. Holy smoly. Here at Pacificon, they came roaring in. And as you can see, we had scouts because this was the JOTA weekend. And we had more people you could shake a stick at. So Bob and I were quite busy meeting all of our fans of Ham Nation. And, Randy, he was there. In fact, he was last week at the studio and was always there working all of the ham radio activities and the booths. There's Jerry and Amy. You saw them. Yep. They were there, and they were mobbed. They had folks coming all over wanting to join aboard the sponsorship of some of these great 3D glasses, and they just see all sorts of projects that could be worked into what they're looking at as viewing as the ham radio world. In fact, one of the exhibitors even had a SDR display that was in 3D. Well, not quite 3D without the Jerry and Amy glasses and program. But let me tell you, if you're into SDR and into big displays and into FT8, Wow, those manufacturers and all the majors, most of the majors were there at this great ham convention in San Ramon. A very popular area throughout the Friday night, all day Saturday and Sunday morning was the kids soldering. And notice that everybody has protective lenses on, and they put together a small little CW oscillator. And let me tell you, when that thing squeaked as it should and give off dits and dashes, they were just delighted that such a thing was doing so well. And as we walk the floor, oh, there's one happy camper. That's Ray showing off his new QRP rig that is really going to, I think, set some real standards. I think it's the 705. But let me tell you, everybody was just oogling over it. You can see the ICOM personnel with big smiles saying, for you QRPers or those that go summits on the air, we've got the radio for you. Probably won't see it for another 6 to 8 months. Maybe it'll preview a date next year for sale in quantity. But ICOM booth was just flooded the entire time. Kids, you know, we go to a lot of ham fests and we don't see a lot of kids. That is the Mount Diablo Amateur Radio Club. Misa and all her team really went all out to ensure that scouts for Joda Weekend were there taking part. The ARRL had a wonderful W1AW portable 6 station, and it was great. The entire floor was just packed, and it really didn't give any of the exhibitors a chance to get a Coca-Cola or take a break. But Mount Diablo Amateur Radio Club and the surrounding clubs in the area made it a point to come around and give us sandwiches and cold drinks. That's taking care of exhibitors, and it was a very, very welcome sight when you see these pretty ladies coming by with a push cart with all sorts of great munchies on it. That Saturday night, Bob Inderbitson of the American Radio Relay League, Bob holds many things that he does there. But let me tell you, folks, if ever there's someone that's coming up through the ranks and ultimately, I hope, rising to the tip top, Bob's the guy. He does probably 20 to 25, maybe even 30 hamfests a year. He had everybody in stitches in a captivated banquet speech. So, Bob, thank you for representing the American Radio Relay League. You were so friggin' funny at Pacificon 2019. But, you know, no hamfest is a hamfest unless you have an outside or an inside swap meet. But if you're going to be a real ham, you got to get there real early. And this was real early, sort of a time-lapse photo there. And as the swap meet got rolling at about 5:30 to 6 in the morning, the fog was so thick that even hams that brought their 2,000 lumen flashlights to look at all the goodies, they could not miss what they were despite the fog. But an hour later, San Francisco fog comes in like little cat's feet. The fog had lifted, and presto, you could then have sunshine. And look at this tube collection. We'll learn more about this tube collection in a few more issues, but it was quite a sight to see some of these high-powered tubes in the flesh. And I want to say that swap meet was put together by the Livermore Amateur Radio Club, and that's club with a K. They call themselves LARK, and they were there to really run that swap meet.